So if you ever wanted to create a new line style that you could use for drawing lines or your wire styles, such as we see here in this image, well, let's go ahead and let me show you how you can do it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open a new project. So from the Electrical Project Manager, let's go ahead and open a new project. And we can see here, I've got my project open and gives us access to several new menu options at the Command Manager. In order to find the file we need, one, you can just use your Windows browser, but I'll show you how to get to it from within the actual software. We're going to go to the Electrical Project. We're going to select the drop down for configurations, and we are going to select drawing style. Now, inside of here, we have our configs for the drawing styles in the application. The application side, the project side. Right now, I'm just working on the application side. You can take these afterwards or now if you'd like to and move it over to the project side. One thing that I always note about any of these configurations, whether you're dealing with drawing styles or wire styles, or more so PLC drawings, connectors, these down here, that when you are working within a configuration, always, always, always take that configuration and turn it into a duplicate. Work with the duplicate. Make the duplicate the working copy that you are going to mess with. Because if you decide to start messing with the original and you mess something up inside of there, then you have nothing to fall back on. So it's a good rule of thumb to always copy out that and duplicate and work with the duplicate. I've already done that, so I've already gone ahead and selected this, hit duplicate, and you can see here that I have copy. So I'll go ahead and open that. And inside of the edit drawing styles here for Imperial, also keep in mind, forgot to mention, make sure you pick the right style depending on what type of project you're working on, what standard, whether it's Imperial or metric, and then make that duplicate. Right now, well, I'm in North America, so I am going to go ahead and use Imperial. What we are going to do here is I'm not going to edit any layers. I could if I wanted to, but we're more concerned with our line types. So I'm going to select the line types tab at the top, and we can see here that I have all the default line types that we can use. Well, we want to add new ones. We want to make a couple custom ones here for things such as hydraulics and pneumatics and P&ID and PFD and whatever else your heart desires with line styles. So in order to edit this list, well, we want to go ahead and select load. Once we select load, we can now load a new file. Well, we're going to go ahead and open, and we're going to find where that location is, where this file is stored. And it is stored, as you can see here, program files, SOLIDWORKS Corporation, SOLIDWORKS Electrical. I have two of them, SOLIDWORKS Electrical and Support. And inside that support folder is a line style file, an .xlin file. Now, again, just like configs, this is an important file, and you don't want to mess this file up. So what I've already done is I've already gone ahead and taken this file, copy paste, and then I've taken the original and I saved it as the original, right? I just renamed it just for now, just so I know that I have the original file in case I mess anything up inside of this particular file. Now, in order to open this, Notepad normally does not recognize a .xlin file, so I do need to say open with, and most likely I'm going to have to go ahead and select more apps and find Notepad from this menu option here. I personally, you can use Notepad. I personally like to edit with Notepad++. It's a separate download, a separate program altogether. And I'll explain a couple of things in there that I like more about using Notepad++. So I'll go ahead and open this, and we can see that I have this file in Notepad++. First thing you notice is that I actually get a little color. It gives me a little bit more granularity when it comes to organizing and understanding how things are broken out in a file that we need to edit like this. So I'm going to edit this one actually. So what we have here is the XLIN file, and these are all, each one of these sections here. So line style, I'm sorry, this one, line style, you can see here, it even grabbed it, line style, all the way through to the end line style here. That is one particular line style. Okay, and you can see here, dash, dash, dot, dash, dash, dot. That's the border, border 2, dash, dot, dash, dot. These are all the different kinds that we already have default in here. All right, so one of the easiest things to do to work with in here is there are certain types of patterns that are easy to work with. You can grab any one of these and mess with them and try to edit them as needed and make one that's just really long and a dot and then really long and a dot if you wanted to, but we're not here to do that. Let's go ahead and find one that makes it a little easier to find. Just keep scrolling down. There's a lot of different line types in here. All right, so the one I like to personally use is this one here called gas. Okay, so I can grab this whole section here, and why I like to use this here is that it has this here standard, right? It's a easy line style that we can edit. Is not a heck of a lot of things that we have to worry about when we're editing this particular type of line. The other thing I like about this Notepad++ as a side note is that it indents where that section is. Just again, another thing that helps make it a little easier to find. If you were to open this in Notepad, there is no indent at all. Everything is just right up against the edge of the screen, and it can be a little confusing sometimes. All right, so what we want to do is we are going to highlight all of this section here from the first line style to the end line style, so slash line style. We're going to go ahead and copy that. So Control C or a copy. And we're going to bring that down, and we're going to add a space, hit enter after the last line style for the zigzag here. So we should have an open space there, and then Control V or paste, and we'll drop in a new section here for gas. Okay. So that's how we start it. Obviously, now we need to edit this. So here in the U.S., I'm going to change this, so I don't really need gas line, and I don't know the language. If you want to leave them in there, go for it. But I don't know what I'm going to change this to ground. We're just going to use the word ground, but I don't know. I don't feel like looking it up right now to find out how to say ground in French and ground in Spanish and ground in Italian and everything else, right? So if you want to take it to the next level and outdo me, go for it. You can go on maybe Google Translate and find the language for each one of these. But for right now, for me personally, I am just going to go ahead and delete those. I'm more concerned with just the English version of this right now. So now we have this much smaller line section here, line style that we're going to work with. So let's go ahead and change this to ground. We're going to just change GAS to GND. Okay. And we may want to change this to, I'm going to do all caps. Keep in mind that this tool is, SOLIDWORKS Electrical is SQL based. So things such as the name of this particular style, line style here, notice all of them capital, capital, capital with an underscore with this one, right? So old school programming, old school language here. If you're going to do instead of a space, just use an underscore between whatever you're typing, right? So if I want to call this, communication line or something, right? I want to make it all caps, and I'll put a underscore between theirs, or come up with some little acronym or something like GND, like I have here for ground. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for the gas line here. So very simply, I know there's ways to, it's highlighting all those other gases to let me change them automatically, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and just say this is ground. Okay. So that is basic how you would change this so that it would go to ground. Now there's a few other things in here that, depending on what you're working with and what kind of symbol you decide to add in here, you may need to tweak these other values a little bit, right? There's several values here, and I did make, let me find it here. I did make a kind of a cheat sheet, I guess you could call it, for this particular setup here. So I don't need that one anymore. Hopefully this is big enough to see. So here is a small example and just some information about what each one of these values really stands for. Let me see if I can get a better view here on the screen based on what we're looking at, right? So the length, this one here. So the length of the line is going to give you how long that section is, and then the gap between when that line ends and where GND is going to start, right? Or in our case, I made another one here as an example with the X on the image. X here, right, that matches those, and then standard, we're going to leave standard alone, and then S is the size. So I could come in and make GND, or in the case of our image, I can make this X symbol here. I can make that bigger or smaller if I needed to. R is rotation, and it does go by degrees. So I initially tried this, and it went 0.09, and it didn't move. And I was like, oh, let's try 30 degrees. And then the X shifted 30 degrees on each one of those when I drew it in the schematic later on, which we'll see. And then the next two values here, the X and Y, are where the font or the symbol or whatever you decide to use, in our case here, the ground or this X, where it plans to fall in line with the line that you're drawing, right? So the X, it will shift that X shape or that GND or the O or whatever you decide to put in there up and, up or down, left and right. So you can see here at 0.1, and I actually have a negative 0.05 in there as well. And then the last one is the gap between the symbol, font, or whatever you use, and the last section of line. So that little tiny gap between the two here, and that's the first one here is this, okay? All right, so hopefully this makes sense. I'll leave that up for a second if you want to screen capture that and have just a reference for that information there. Okay, 3, 2, 1, turning it off. All right, so now what you can do from here, if you decide to edit these, you can come in and maybe you have ground, and maybe you have, and I'll make another one just to have it. I'll do one that's called com. Maybe instead of ground line, maybe you like to use common, right? So maybe it's a common line, depending on what you're doing. It's to each his own on how much you want to get into the details of this. So I'm gonna just select com, paste, paste, paste. Oh, missed it. Oh. All right. So you can see here, I've got a couple in here as well. And I've actually got another version of this particular file that has a whole bunch more of them. And I'm going to go to that one now. So you can see here that we have that excellent file. And here is another one that I have that I've gone ahead and edited. And you can see now that I have ground, com. I've added a hydraulic line, right? These are ASI standard line types that I want to include. And so we have comlink with an open circle and a closed circle. It's not hatched. That's actually the font or the symbol from Word. As a side note, I know I'm getting a little off topic with this, talking about these little symbols here, but what I personally like to do is I will actually go ahead and open Word, and I will use my insert symbol, and I will find a symbol in here, And as soon as you take this, what I like to do is you copy and paste it. As soon as you drop it into either Notepad Plus or just regular Notepad, it strips any extra data out of it because there's such like Notepad, for example, right? So if it doesn't show up in Notepad, it's not going to show up in SOLIDWORKS Electrical. So that's one way to check to make sure that a particular symbol type is going to work. Like phase, for example, many times I've gone in here, I found my symbol for phase, and I've taken that piece of information, dropped it into Notepad, and strips out any extra data that might be associated to that symbol. Usually there's not, but you can either try put it right into electrical, but just in case, I like to put it in Notepad and make sure it's going to work. If it doesn't work, then it's going to give you just a rectangle, right? That shape, kind of like one of these that you see here on the screen, right? It's going to maybe not a question mark, but at least just the rectangle shape. Anyway, so I found the circles here, right? And I even went ahead and found a diamond shape, and this is not just an X on your keyboard. This is actually a symbol X on here. And even just to mess around a little bit, I went ahead and found one that has kind of a sine wave, right? For tried to make my own signal here. It's actually from the ASI standard, but you can see here that each one of these, I talked about the tweaking those numbers there a little bit. You can see that this one, I've changed the size of the symbol slightly compared to the X, which is at 0.1. And then in addition to that, where that X falls on the line is different from where the Y falls on, where the sine wave, right, the tilde, falls on the line as well. So again, you may have to come in here, play with this a little bit, get this to what you think is right. And then what we're going to do, right? Obviously, we want to save this file out. So I'll go ahead and hit save. Yes, I know. Thank you. Okay, so we go ahead and hit save. And once we save our file, we have our original file here, right? We saved our original one out. We're not touching that. We're working with this one here. We're going to go ahead and open that file. So once we are comfortable with that, we open that file. Okay, and now we can see that I have all these new styles here that are available. It's just a quick view to see what the heck was in that file that I just added. And you can see all these fancy new symbol types in here. And we're going to go ahead and say load all and close. And as soon as we say load all and close, now these are added to that configuration. We can see these new styles here, and we'll go ahead and say OK. All right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to set this one because this one's already pre-built. I just ran through those steps so you can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and close. Let's go ahead and open up a schematic and see what it looks like. So I am going to, first, I'm just going to draw a line for now. I'll show you where, and what we want to do after we draw a line is we can come down and we can see all these different styles that have been added. Ground, let's add a couple more of these. Oh, I want to turn my snaps on. One of my my tips and tricks that I love to share with people is try to always use the snap spacing if you can. Snap and grid are your friends. A lot of people don't like to use them, but I do. I know these are not wires yet. We're going to get to that. So I like to start with the lines here and just use drawing lines. Use the draw tab and use the line command, right? These are just graphic lines. These are not wires yet. And the reason I want to do that is I want to make sure that I like what I've set. Remember I tweaked those settings, right, for each one of those. So I want to make sure that I like the way it looks, like dash with a gap, ground with a gap, another dash, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of these and see if we like the way they look. Let's go with this one. Go with that one. You get the idea, okay? So I've already gone ahead and tweaked these to make them look nice and clean. There's no crazy offset with these. Again, I tweak them just a little bit here and there and mess with it. So if there was a problem and you didn't like the way this looked, well, you have to go back to your file. You're going to come back into this and you're going to find the one that you want to make sure that is right. And it might be a little bit of trial and error to come in here and say, oh, I need to, maybe I want the line longer. Okay, I'll make it 0.7, right? And oh, the space between the line and the symbol is really close. I want to make it a little bigger or smaller, right? So you want to go in and just tweak those. Save this file, right? So make sure you save it again. And then you're going to go through those same steps again, where you're going to find the drawing style, find the one you want, line style, load, open, and you're going to pull that back in, and it will overwrite the existing styles that you have in there. Okay. When I first did this, I probably had to do it just because I was learning the tweaks and trying to figure out exactly, how much is too much when I move something around in here. Going from 0.1 to 0.2 could be drastic, whereas if I just go 0.1 to 0.125 maybe, or something like that, it was a little bit easier to deal with. Wasn't so drastic. Okay. Now that you have these in here, now we can, and you like the way they look here as lines, well, now we can come into our wire styles. We could take a look at all of our different wire styles. I'm just going to grab a random one here, and we have the ability to change them here. I like to do it with just lines first because I don't want to have, these are just extra, a whole nother level of menu options to go in here and change. Every time, like, right, if you don't like the way it looks, you can't come in here, okay, and I drew that 12-volt line. Let's go to schematic, and I'll draw that 12-volt line, and we could see, right, if I need to edit that, yeah, now it's a whole nother level of editing this because it's buried another couple layers deep in here. So when you're editing, just try to work with lines first, and then you have the ability to come in here and edit these. They do look good when you rotate and line up, right, and you move them around as needed. I tried it with all of them. I'll add this one more in here because this is a very common, these two are common that people love to work with. And you can grab these and move these around as needed, right? And they still look good. So again, once you're done with that and you've got what you like as far as all those different styles, make sure you, in your drawing configs, make sure you have this, and you can, they take that copy, and if you want to, you can archive that out and save that as a separate zip file for later on, right? You never know if you need to save that for somebody, another client, maybe if you're in a network setup and you want to share it with them. To each his own on how you want to do it. I like to have copies of all these because it does take time to build these and you don't want to lose them. Especially if you go to upgrade to a new release, make sure you copy these. Everybody and anybody and everybody will tell you that when you are upgrading to a new release, always, always, always make sure you do an environment archive, and it will capture all of this stuff. But even as an extra precaution, just go in there, get that file, and save it off. So hopefully that helped with the idea of creating your own line types for your wire styles or just drawing and whatever else you want to do, right? I thought it was pretty cool to be able to throw a diamond in there and this little mechanical hydraulic L. It's not an actual L, it's just a symbol. Anyway, I can keep talking, but I've already been talking for 25 minutes, so hope you have a great day. It's Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for watching.